Peter Pan. Chapter 1. Dreaming of Peter Pan. Every morning, Mr. and Mrs. Darling kissed their children Wendy, John, and Michael goodbye. Then Nana the dog brought their coats and walked them to school. When the children came home from school, they always played in Neverland. Neverland is different for every child, but all children play there. For Wendy and her brothers, Neverland was a beautiful island with Indians and angry pirates. One night, Mrs. Darling put the children into bed. Then she gave Michael his medicine. Peter Pan doesn't like medicine, Wendy said. Mrs. Darling remembered Peter Pan from when she was young. He lived with the fairies, she thought, but he wasn't a real boy. Real boys grow up. One morning, Mrs. Darling found some flowers in the children's room. Peter Pan left them, said Wendy. He comes here at night when we're sleeping. Wendy's only dreaming, thought Mrs. Darling. But where did the flowers come from? That night, Mrs. Darling told the children stories. They were soon asleep, and Mrs. Darling was asleep too. Suddenly, Mrs. Darling opened her eyes. The windows were open, and there was a boy in the room. Mrs. Darling remembered him at once. Peter Pan, she cried. Peter flew out of the window, but Nana caught his shadow in her teeth. Mrs. Darling put the shadow away, but she was afraid. He's going to come back for it, she thought. Nana was afraid too. The next evening, she made a lot of noise when Mr. and Mrs. Darling went out, but Mr. Darling put her out into the garden. Later, Peter and a fairy came back for the shadow. Wendy woke up and saw them. Who's your friend, Peter? She asked. That's Tinker Bell, he said. She's a fairy. Peter found his shadow, but he couldn't put it on. I'll sew it on you for you, Wendy said. It isn't easy to sew a shadow onto somebody, but Peter didn't cry. Now, thank me with a kiss, Wendy said when she finished. Tinker Bell flew here and there angrily, but Peter gave Wendy a button. He didn't know about kisses. I often come to your window and listen to your mother's stories, Peter said. Then I tell them to the lost boys. Who are they? Wendy asked. Boys with no mothers, Peter answered. They live with me in Neverland. There aren't any mothers there. Peter was very happy with his shadow, and he danced. Come to Neverland and tell us stories, he said. I can teach you to fly. What about my brothers? Wendy asked. Can you teach them too? Oh, all right, said Peter. Wendy woke them up. Peter taught the children how to fly. Nana could see them from the garden. She ran here and there, but she couldn't do anything. Then Mr. and Mrs. Darling came home. Quick, cried Mrs. Darling, the children. Chapter 2. Neverland. Peter and the children flew out of the room and down the river, then out over the sea. They flew for many days and nights. They were hot, then cold, then hot again. The children couldn't fly fast, and they often hit clouds. Sometimes Peter was bored, so he flew away from them and had adventures. Many times he nearly forgot about them. Once Michael began to sleep. He fell down and down to the sea. Peter watched him and laughed. Seconds before Michael went into the sea, Peter flew down and caught him. One day the clouds opened and the children saw a beautiful island. That's Neverland, Wendy cried. Look, there's the pirate ship, called John, and those are the Indians. They were happy and very excited about their new adventure. Be careful, Peter said. Pirates and Indians can kill you. Suddenly the children were afraid. Neverland was only a game before, but this island was real. Suddenly there was a noise and smoke, and Tinker Bell and Wendy went up into the clouds. The pirate ship is shooting at us, Tinker Bell cried. Come with me. I don't like Wendy. Now I can kill her, she thought. Captain Hook and some pirates were in the forest. Hook was a big man with a killer smile and a hook for his right hand. All the pirates were afraid of him. Suddenly, smoke came out of the ground near Hook. The lost boy's house, at last, he cried. It's under our feet. Shall we attack? A pirate called Smee asked. No, Hook said. Peter's away. I want to kill him. Peter's sword took off my hand, and then a crocodile ate it, Hook told the pirates when they walked back to their ship. Now the crocodile wants to eat me. But the crocodile ate a clock too, Hook told them. So now I hear the clock. I run away. One day that clock is going to stop, said Smee. Later, the lost boys sat outside their house. Suddenly, Tinker Bell and Wendy flew over them. What's that, Tinker Bell? Toodles called when he saw Wendy. It's Wendy Bird, cried Tinker Bell, and Peter said, shoot, Wendy Birds. So Toodles took an arrow and shot Wendy. Chapter 3. The Lost Boys. I shot the Wendy Bird, Toodles cried happily. That wasn't a bird, the one boy said. That was a mother for us, and you killed her. Just then, Peter, John, and Michael arrived. I'm very sorry, Toodles told them. Tinkerbell said, shoot the Wendy Bird, so I did. Go away, Peter told Tinkerbell. I never want to see you again. Never? Tinkerbell asked. Okay, for 1 week, Peter said. Then Peter saw the arrow. It was in Wendy's button. She isn't dead, he cried. The arrow hit my kiss. Bring dinner, Peter told the boys, but there wasn't anything to eat, so everyone pretended to eat. To the house, Peter said after dinner. The lost boys went into some hollow trees. They went down inside the trees to a house under the ground. After that, Wendy, John, and Michael lived in the lost boys' house, and Wendy was the lost boys' mother. She put them into bed at night and told them stories. She sewed their buttons on and gave them medicine. They had lots of adventures. Soon, Michael and John began to forget their real mother. The lost boys often swam near some rocks. One day, two pirates came in a boat. They had Tiger Lily, an Indian, with them. They couldn't see the boys in the fog. The pirates tied Tiger Lily to a rock. The water's going to be higher soon, laughed Smee. I must help her, thought Peter. She's going to die. Peter pretended to be Hook. Cut the ropes, he called. The pirates couldn't see Hook in the fog, but Smee cut the ropes. Tiger Lily quickly swam away. Then the real Hook came, and the pirates understood. Where are you, Peter Pan? They cried. Slowly the fog went away. The pirate saw Peter on a rock with a sword in his hand. Come and fight me, he called to Hook. The pirates and the lost boys began fighting. Peter put his sword down and helped Hook to get up onto the rock. Good form, thought Hook angrily. Then he got Peter with his hook. It was bad form to attack Peter when he wasn't ready, and Hook knew that, but he wasn't a nice man. Peter fell, and Hook stood over him and smiled. He's going to kill Peter, Wendy thought, but she couldn't help him.